she had to snuff the life out of her own child because she was crying when all others were hiding in the forests. So her cries would give away the location of the Hindus. So she had to kill her own baby to save the whole village. PV Narasimha Rao was himself a victim of the Razakars and someone who fought against the Razakars. He fought for the right to wear a dhoti. There were 100 kinds of taxes on people. If you grow your hair, you had to pay a tax. If you tonsure yourselves, you have to pay a tax. If a child is born, a tax has to be paid. And all these taxes were paid only by the Hindus, not by the Muslims. When Al-Aqsa Mosque was desecrated somewhere in Jerusalem, there was an attack in Hyderabad on the Hindus. The Ganga Jamni Tahjeeb stays because the Hindus of Hyderabad are now learning to defend themselves. Even to start a Vyayam Shala, Hindus had to take permission from the Nizams. Hindu women were made to disrobe and then, perform what is known as Batkama.
Hello, a very good evening. Hello, and a very good evening, and welcome to this special podcast hosted with Raka Sudhakar ji. He is a senior journalist and he's almost an authority. I mean, in fact, an authority on the history of Hyderabad and how exactly it was liberated. He's done podcasts for us in the past too, but we thought it would be a great moment again if we could reconnect and again explore some of the contours that were not explored the previous time. Sudhakar Garu, thank you so much for joining us. Namaskaram, and thank you so much for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you so much. It's an opportunity even for me. Thank you so much.
It's extremely humble of you, sir. Let me begin by asking you this. Why do we call it the liberation of Hyderabad? Maybe everybody knows that. And why I'm asking you this is there is a small narrative going around in the Indian political circles, which is that India had forcefully abducted Hyderabad while Hyderabad wanted to, out of choice, go to Pakistan. And the Pakistanis have very cleverly hijacked this narrative there as well. So, what is the truth? Did we forcefully take over Hyderabad, or did the people actually want it to be a part of India and their voices were suppressed?
See, the truth is, all the more than 550 princely states have acceded to India, and that way even Hyderabad has acceded to India. Nizam has signed an instrument of accession, like all of the princes and the kings and the royalty. So that way, it is an integration. There's no doubt about it. It is an integration. But at the same time, it is a liberation for the countless people of Hyderabad. Hyderabad was 85% Hindu, predominantly Hindu, Marathi speaking, Telugu speaking, as well as Kannada speaking. And these Hindus were oppressed and suppressed to no end. I can go on relating to you the kind of atrocities that have been performed by the that have been perpetrated rather by the Razakars, the private army of Nizam, and also the Nizam police. Both were hand in glove, and the Hindus were denied the basic rights such as public offer of prayers, public performance of rituals. Even Havan was prohibited. A public organizing of a Havan was prohibited, and there are a lot of others. So for the Hindus of Hyderabad, it has been a liberation, and there's no doubt about it. So it is both integration with India. Hyderabad joined the Indian Union 1 year, 1 month, and 2 days after the rest of the country was, liberated, became independent. So that way, it is an integration, but at the same time, it is also a liberation for the Hindu population. More than 1 crore, 1 lakh people of Hyderabad, nearly 85 to 90% of them Hindus. They felt a sigh of relief when they joined India because they were subjected to untold cruelty. So it is a liberation. The narrative that you see on the social media that it is not a liberation, this is an integration, is actually majorly because of the mistake of the Hindu community of Hyderabad. The Hindu community of
Right.
Hyderabad has forgotten the story of liberation. It's almost 75 years, three generations have passed. The generation that has lived through the atrocities and the, um, you know, um, the torture, uh, atrocities have passed away. They have not recorded their, their version of the story. Even, even now, if you go to interior Telangana, you would find people saying that my grandmother told me, my grandfather told me that there were Razakars, and we the whole village had to run into fields to save ourselves, or we climbed up. I know of a story of local leader, political leader who belongs to the ruling TRS. His mother, his grandmother rather, she had to snuff the life out of her own child because she was crying when all others were hiding in the forests. So her cries would give away the location of the Hindus. So she had to kill her own baby to save the whole village. There are many stories like that. These stories have not been passed on from generation to generation. And
Right.
all those Razakars have waited patiently for 30, 40 years to publish their version of the story. They started publishing their version of the story for the last 20 years. Ex-Razakars, former officials of the Nizam government, former collectors and magistrates of Nizam government, they started publishing their memoirs, they started publishing their books, they started giving out their version of the story and started calling it destruction of Hyderabad or invasion of Hyderabad. A.G. Nurani,
Hmm.
supposedly a legal luminary, he has written a book. The title of the book is Destruction of Hyderabad. The last 20 years, every year there is one book or the other which espouses the Razakar point of view. Whereas um, the story of the people has not been told. The governments of the day, for instance, in 1972, the government of Andhra Pradesh celebrated 25 years of 1947, August 15, independence, and they published History of Hyderabad in 5 volumes, each volume extending into 350 pages. Nearly 1500 pages of history was written about Hyderabad's history. In these 1500 pages, the government version, the official version, published by the Archives Department of Government of Andhra Pradesh, edited by a reputable, redoubtable historian like Dr. Sarojini Regani, highly respected historian, there is not a single mention of the word Razakar. And you know who was the chief minister? P.V. Narasimha Rao was the chief minister. And P.V. Narasimha Rao was himself a victim of the Razakars and someone who fought against the Razakars. He
Right.
fought for the right to wear a dhoti. That's a very interesting story. He fought for the right of the Hindu students to wear a dhoti instead of a sherwani and pajama. So the our side of story has not been told. The people's side of the story has not been told. Whereas the Razakars have kept alive their stories, and if you browse internet today, you would only get the Razakar version. That is where the whole problem lies. The Pakistan aided it. The Razakars and their progeny are perpetuating this story. So the real story of the people of Hyderabad, the Kannadigas, the Marathis, the Telugus, has remained suppressed.
It's very interesting that you mentioned this because I have a lot of relatives and friends who live and study and work in Hyderabad. And the one thing that everybody recommends me in common is that I should visit Salarjung Museum and look at the glories of the Nizam kingdom that existed. No, obviously, these jewels and artifacts are coming from somewhere. It cannot be coming from outside of the subcontinent. Uh, but what is more surprising is that even though these people have been born, I mean, not to blame them, but even though they have been born and brought up in Hyderabad, they are completely unaware of incidents like the Byronpalli massacre that has
Incident.
happened.
Yes. Yes.
So maybe is it also true that the liberation of Hyderabad must be celebrated by not just the people of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, but also other parts of India like Karnataka and Maharashtra, which were earlier a part of the Hyderabad.
Hyderabad State. Yes, yes.
Right.
That is very true. First thing, Nizam's riches or his prosperity or his money is all because of the blood and toil and sweat of the common citizen of the erstwhile Hyderabad State. So around Hyderabad, there were close to 2 or 3 thousand villages, and they were known as Atrafe Balda. Hyderabad was Balda, the center. Atrafe Balda is the area around Hyderabad. This all the every single paisa that was collected towards revenues and taxes. There were 100 kinds of taxes on people. If you grow your hair, you had to pay a tax. If you tonsure yourselves, you have to pay a tax. If a child is born, a tax has to be paid, and all these taxes were paid only by the Hindus, not by the Muslims. There were no taxes for the Muslims. Muslims were made to feel that they were the rulers of this land, because Nizam and his cohorts, they brought out a theory called An al Malik. An al Malik is, I am the ruler. An average Muslim was made to feel that he was the ruler, and in the continuation and perpetuation of Nizam's rule, his welfare and his prosperity lay. So Muslims did not pay taxes. The taxes were paid only by the Hindus, and all the taxes collected from this area, today what is known as Rangareddy, Medchal, Malkajgiri, it was known as Atraf Balda in those days. And this Atraf Balda, the taxes and revenue from Atraf Balda were used for the personal expenditure of Nizam. His expenditure was taken care of by the ordinary farmer, daily wage laborer, his revenue, the revenue that he gave to the Nizam government. And there were about 40% of the land was Sarfe Khas lands. Sarfe Khas lands are those lands that belong to the um, government officials, Nizam's closest
Okay.
relatives, who were known as Paigas. So 40% of
Hmm.
the land was owned by them. And all these riches accrued to Nizam, and Nizam's riches were actually the blood and sweat and toil of the common Hindu people. And why the people of today do not remember this story of Nizam's atrocities or Razakars, harassment and torture, is because there has been a systematic attempt to obfuscate the story of the atrocities the story of the atrocities perpetrated by the Razakars firstly, and then there was this attempt by the Congress to usurp the Muslim vote bank, and this whole game of Muslim appeasement started. Do you know that after 1948, the Razakars and their party Majlis Ittihadul Muslimin contested the elections only as independents? It was in 1969 that the then government, led by Mr. Kasu Brahmananda Reddy, it wanted to defeat the Telangana agitation, separate movement for a separate state of Telangana. And in order to weaken the movement, they befriended Majlis, and the government paid, the court ordered that the headquarters of the Majlis be handed over back to the MIM.
Right.
The headquarters is known as Darus Salam. It was handed over, not just handed over, the maintenance and the repairs of this were borne by the government of Andhra Pradesh at the instance of the court. So the riches of Nizam or his opulence, everything that you see in Chaumahalla Palace or in Salarjung Museum or some other places, Falaknuma Palace for that matter, they're all the blood and toil of the common Hindu citizen of Hyderabad. One, and secondly, there has been a systematic attempt to you know uh, attempt at cover up. This whole story was not told. There was a commission by Nehru. It was not exactly a commission, a goodwill commission called Sundarlal Committee. This Sundarlal Committee's brief was to assuage the feeling of the aggrieved Muslims. It was sent by Nehru. It was not a commission of inquiry, not an official commission of inquiry, or not
Okay.
even a Congress commission of inquiry. It is a goodwill mission. But today, the story that is peddled is that it was a in a commission sent by Nehru, and that it has recorded that 50,000 Muslims were killed in the aftermath of Hyderabad's liberation. So the Hyderabadi Muslims, the so-called, seculars, they peddle the story that there was a massacre of Muslims after the liberation of Hyderabad, conveniently obfuscating the fact that Hindus were, massacred, and there was
Right.
complete denial of the basic human rights, and this story has not been recorded anywhere. And there's no memory of the, Razakars and their atrocities in the public memory today. This is mainly due to the policies of the Congress government that ruled for a large part of time in Andhra Pradesh, undivided Andhra Pradesh. And secondly, the historians who have chosen not to talk about Razakars, and the attempts by the Razakarist forces, I should say, to actually tell only one side of the story.
In fact, today's politics as well, they probably haven't represented the Hindu sentiments as much. I mean, maybe in 2022, there is an alternative that is emerging in the form of BJP and other parties which are now slowly rising to power. But essentially, the Owaisis and MIM has been very powerful, at least in the city of Hyderabad, for a very long time. And they've represented this politics of Ganga, Jamuna, Tehzeeb. Uh, I would just like to get your comments on that and also on the entire Jai Bhim, sloganeering that happens today. Even that has a certain history associated with it.
Yes. See, first of all, Jai Bhim, Jai Meme. Before we go into the Jai Bhim, Jai Meme story, let us look at the Ganga Jamni Tahzeeb. The fact of Hyderabad being one of the hottest communal tinder boxes is undeniable. It is only after the Hindu community became vocal, physically strong, and able to defend itself that the communal riots have subsided. The last major communal riots was somewhere around 1992-93. After that, there was one communal riot in 2012, and then there was another communal riot somewhere around 2019. The communal riots, the way they should happen, they have subsided because the Hindus began to defend themselves ably. Earlier, there was a situation when the communal riots ran for nearly 56 days. Hyderabad was under curfew for 56 days. That was in 1983-84, if I remember correctly. The Hyderabad had to remain under curfew, the old city of Hyderabad, for 56 days. It was after in the aftermath of the Babri incident, 1993-94, that the communal riots subsided. Next communal riot was in 2012, if I remember correctly, and then there was one in 2018. The change is, earlier the communal minimum span of a communal riot was 3 to 4 days. Today, the communal riots in 2012 as well as 2018-19, the communal riots for 1 day or so. Now the span of communal rights is one, for 8 hours, 7 hours. It is
Right.
localized. So the span of communal rights
Okay.
is coming down. The Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb stays because the Hindus are stronger these days and Hindus are able to defend them ably. Otherwise, Hyderabad had, when Al-Aqsa Mosque was desecrated somewhere in Jerusalem,
Yeah.
there was an attack in Hyderabad on the Hindus, and this used to happen every day. There were communal riots for no reason. Ganesh procession was attacked every time there was a Ganesh procession in Hyderabad, and the Hindus of Hyderabad had to take out a joint united Ganesh procession in the old city of the Hyderabad. So that is today's Ganesh Utsav Samiti, and then the
Right.
general Ganesh procession. So much for the Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb. The Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb stays because the Hindus of Hyderabad are now learning to defend themselves. As far as the other point that you talked about, the Jai Bhim, Jai Meme narrative. See, this narrative has its roots in the Nizam era. We all know that four districts of Karnataka, five districts of Maharashtra, and nine districts of Telangana put together was Hyderabad State. It was around 82,000 square kilometers area, and it had a population of 1 crore 1 lakh 1.01 crore people. In the Karnataka part, there was a Dalit leader, scheduled caste leader. His name was Shyam Sundar. This Shyam Sundar was a well-read, well-educated man, but a stooge of Nizam. And it was he who started this, clubs all across Telangana, and they were known as Jai Bhim clubs. So this whole
Right.
slogan of Jai Bhim came from this man called Sham Sundar. Today Sham Sundar is forgotten, but his Jai Bhim slogan stays. And he started talking about Muslim Dalit unity way back in the 1930s and 40s, and he was part of the Nizam government. He and another leader called B.S. Venkat Rao, they very passionately espoused Muslim Dalit unity. B.S.
Hmm.
Venkatrao was in fact a minister in Nizam's regime. He was one of the
Okay.
representatives of the Dalits. It was then that this whole idea of Hindu Dalit Muslim Dalit unity started, and Sham Sundar even went to the UN in support of Nizam's right to stay independent of India. So they even went to United States. So the Jai Bhim narrative has been there since 1930s, and today it has been perfected by Asaduddin Owaisi. And unfortunately, um, the Dalit community in the Muslim dominated parts are a victim of Muslim atrocities. There is a famous case of Jababag where all the Dalits were evicted. All the Dalits, Jababag in the old city of Hyderabad, where all the Dalits were evicted. But then it is a kind of a Stockholm syndrome where the victims of atrocities started believing that the perpetrators were their best bet. So that's how MIM has about seven to eight um, corporators who are actually Dalits. So the
Right. Okay.
Jaimim narrative um, is still powerful in the old city of Hyderabad. Out of their 30, 40, or 50 corporators, some 78 are Dalits and they're Hindus. And this is how this whole story of Jai Bhim came up. It has its roots in the 1930s when Sham Sundar began this talk, and Razakars and the Nizam government promoted this concept of Jai Bhim and Jai Bhim way back, and it is there even now in some parts of Hyderabad. And Owaisi is trying to popularize this elsewhere in the country, not with much success though.
You mentioned Old City a few times, and I'm very curious because I have visited Hyderabad two, three times in the recent past, and I have fond memories of visiting Hyderabad as a child, where I had been to Old City. I think Old City is more or less still the same, and there's very, very little development when it comes to that part of the city. So, why is there such distinction in spite of, say, the TRS or the MIM being in power for a very long time?
See, the problem with Old City is till 1983. Old City, which had more Muslims, used to elect a Hindu as the MP. And New
Okay,
City, which had a population high, majority of Hindus, used to elect a Muslim. MM Hashim was MP
okay.
from the New City, which was Hindu dominated. And
Why
in
would that
83,
happen?
see, there was, practically the Hindu community never, had any ill will towards the very Razakars were, they believed in forget and forgive. So a
Okay.
Muslim became, I think, two-time or three-time MP from Secunderabad, and Hindu used to get elected from the, old city, which is Muslim dominated, which had a sufficient and amount of Hindu votes. A lot of things have happened over a period of time. Actually, in the 80s, the communal riots peaked, and the Hindus started exiting Hyderabad. This is one silent exodus that has never found mention in any mainstream media. See, the exodus of Kashmiri Hindu Pandits is now a mainstream narrative, but exodus of the Hindus from the old city has never been mentioned even by the Hindus. It is so silent, and it happens in such small numbers, insignificant numbers, that it's always sub threshold, and people do not even realize that the Hindus are emigrating, moving out of the old city. Lot of areas, for example, Bela area near Charminar was known for koa, a sweet meat, sweet, yeah, something that is used for making sweets. It was a Hindu dominated area. Muslims have moved over to the Bela area. If you go to the Bela area, all the houses you will find Hindu architecture. For instance, the image of Lord Ganesha and others in the chaukat of the house. The Muslims have moved in. They did not even have the time to repair or renovate the houses. They simply moved in. They still bear the Hindu motifs, and the whole of Bela is now a Muslim dominated area. There used to be areas in Charminar where there used to be very famous temples. They are now Muslim dominated areas. And a lot of areas I have counted. In fact, with the former three-time MLA, Mr. Balreddy, Baddam Balreddy, he was one of the biggest protector of the Hindus in the old city, along with Mr. Ale Narendra, who went on to become Union Minister for some time. We counted 18 temples which exist only in name. The whole area surrounding the temple is Islamized. The Muslim population have taken over. The Hindus have moved away. The temple exists, but only in name. The pujari comes, the purohit priest comes in the morning, he just worships and he hurriedly closes down the temple and rushes away. And there is this Purana Sri Krishna Mandir, Prachina Krishna Mandir. I visited this temple, and this temple, the pujari was eagerly, anxiously calling me again and again. When are you coming? When are you coming? I have to close the temple and go. Because the boys outside were playing cricket. They were playing cricket on the foreground of the temple, the land that belongs to the temple, and they were objecting to the chiming of the bells inside. Our cricket game gets disturbed. Why are you chiming your bells? Was the constant reference. So this man was afraid. So we went, we performed puja. There are some 18 temples like that. The Hindus have silently come out of the old city from the large parts. And politically, during 2019, there was a delimitation of the constituencies in which the Hindu
Right.
population of Hyderabad has been bifurcated into four Muslim dominated constituencies. The center
Okay.
of the old city still has a Hindu population. Part of this Hindu population has gone to the Chandranagutta constituency, which is Muslim dominated majority constituency. Akbaruddin Owaisi represents that constituency. Part of the Hindu population has gone to Charminar constituency, which is represented by MIM MLA Pasha Khadri, because it is a Muslim majority. Part of it has gone to Bahadurpura, which is 80% Muslim constituency, and part of it has gone to another constituency, Yakutpura. Yakutpura has the highest number of Hindus, and people of Yakutpura tell me that for the last 40 years they haven't seen their MLA's face. The MLA is always an MIM MLA, and he never bothers to visit Hindu areas. So the Hindu population, which could have had one assembly constituency at least, has been partitioned into four constituencies, and all the four are Muslim constituencies. That's how MIM has become a majority. There is no development worth the name because the MIM does not want the development of the area. There is no, even now, getting land for metro rail and systems like that, and then construction of flyovers is a huge problem. There's unruliness in the old city. There are vehicles are parked everywhere, and the moment you cross the Musi, you feel that you have gone into 1970s, 1960s. The Hyderabad has huge, monuments like High Tech City and others. But the moment you cross the old city, Musi River, the other side of Chadarghat Bridge, or the other bridges that we have, Purana Pool Bridge, you go to into a different world. There's no development whatsoever because of the Majlis. And all the political parties like TRS today, TDP earlier, Congress party, they have uh, you know um, leased out their work in the old city to the MIM. MIM has become increasingly powerful. These parties put up candidates to divide the Hindu votes, and the Hindu vote gets divided. The minority Hindu vote already gets divided, and the MIM keeps on winning.
There is a growing attempt, at least from the part of the BJP, to associate Qasim Rizvi's association with Owaisi, his family, and his party, but none of it is actually explained very well. So, how much of Qasim Rizvi's politics and say worldview is taken as an inspiration by the MIM and is reflected today?
Well, the MIM today has prefixed itself with All India. Today, it is not Majlis Ittihad al Muslimin, it is All India Majlis Ittihad al Muslimin. You would notice that the same trend was seen in case of Muslim League in Kerala and Tamil Nadu. The Muslim League, which is a remnant of the Muhammad Ali Jinnah's Muslim League in South India, has prefixed itself with Indian Union. It became suddenly, overnight, it became a secular apparatus. The same happened in case of this.
Yeah,
The tone, tenor, nothing have changed. Only thing is, it is now more sugar coated. The Owaisis are very clever operatives, the Akbaruddin as well as Asaduddin. Akbaruddin caters to the old city. He speaks the rabid fundamentalist tone in the old city, whereas Asaduddin, who wants to project Muslims as a victim, and wants to project himself as as a face of the Muslim community in across the country, adopts what looks like a conciliatory tone, what looks like a secular tone. But otherwise, if you go to the old city, if you look into to the gully level or the street level politics of MIM, there is not much change between the Razakar system and the present MIM system. We don't get to actually, no reporter of any mainstream paper goes to Hyderabad and tries to meet the people on the street, wants to observe what is happening across the streets, how land is being gobbled up, and how Hindu areas are being taken away, how Muslim institutions are trying to appropriate the history of Hyderabad. All these things can be understood only if you go to the streets. None of the mainstream
right.
journalists, they bother to go to these areas. So MIM's roots have not changed, the mindset has not changed, and whenever a terrorist gets arrested, MIM is always there to defend them. The advocates who defend them are also advocates of MIM in many cases. At the ground level. At the ground level, of course, it's another matter. Whenever Owaisis are in trouble, it is the Hindu lawyers who fight for them. They employ the best of the Hindu lawyers to extricate themselves of the problem. And Owaisi's great grandfather, not great grandfather, his grandfather Abdul Wahed Owaisi was the one who took over from Qasim Rizvi after Qasim Rizvi completed his jail term and left for Pakistan in 1956. Though he was imprisoned, Qasim Rizvi continued to be the head of the MIM till 1956. He was arrested in a famous case called Bibinagar case, and he served imprisonment prison term for 6 years. After he came out, he was given an option to leave for Pakistan within 24 hours by the Nehru government. And before leaving, he convened a meeting of the remnants of the MIM. There were 124 key leaders of MIM. When he called for a meeting, only 24 or 25, maybe 34, 35 people came. And from among them, people were asked to choose the leadership. Who would become the leader of MIM? So Kashim Razvi asked them. So nobody came forward, and a young lawyer by name Abdul Wahed, he came forward and he took over the responsibility. For some years, MIM was a service organization trying to rehabilitate the Muslims who have been affected by the police action or the Operation Polo. Later, it started contesting, elections as independents. Later, as MIM members, and now we know that MIM has about one MP in Telangana, seven MLAs, and around 100 corporators across the Telangana state. So Abdul Wahid's son is Sultan Salahuddin Owaisi. Their sons are Asaduddin Owaisi and Akbaruddin Owaisi. So this is the
Right.
connection between the Kashim Rizvi and these people. Kashim Rizvi and Abdul Wahid are not relatives, but they are relatives in terms of the same rabid fundamentalist ideology.
In fact, when we speak about Mopla riots, we speak about how there was a considerable amount of support for the Khilafat movement even in India. So that way, I think even the Nizam supported the Khilafat movement, and many of them were even had marital ties to several parts of West Asia, right?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Nizam's family always had connections. In fact, till about 1970s, Nizam's family, uh, Nizam Mir Osman Ali Khan, he has actually funded and supported the upkeep and maintenance of Makkah and Medina. Money used to go from
Okay.
the Nawab of Bhopal and the Nizam of Hyderabad for the upkeep. It is only after petrodollars started, the petrol was dug, and then petroleum explorations began in the Gulf area, and Gulf has seen some prosperity that the local Arabs took over. Nizam always had a contingent of military personnel from the Muslim parts of Africa. They were known as Abyssinian Cavalry. You have a place in Hyderabad called AC Guards. AC Guard is nothing but Abyssinian Cavalry Guards. The Abyssinian Cavalry of Nizam used to be stationed there. And there was also a place called Habsiguda. Habsis are Abyssinians or Ethiopians. They were brought, and Yemenis have a strong connection to Hyderabad. A lot of Nizam's relatives had links to the Arabian world, especially the Turkish world. In fact, even now, Princess Durrush Shehwar, who is married to one of the later day Nizams after the seventh Nizam, is a Turkish woman. And same way, we have a famous hospital in Hyderabad called Nilofer Hospital. It is named after a woman called Nilofer, who was the wife of one of the Nizams, and she's of Turkish origin. So Nizams always wanted to maintain relations with West Asia, Turkey, Arabia, and some parts of Persia too.
Um, then I was actually told that there have been so many slogans which were particularly invented towards Hindu women, and it was used, and it is still in use today. So I was hoping that you could actually speak about more on the atrocities and the treatment of Hindus that happened in that phase, because you did touch upon it earlier,
Yes, yes,
but
yes, yes,
it
yes.
would be great if you can give us some more details about that.
Yeah. See, the atrocities were not just perpetrated by the Razakars, the private army of Nizam. Even the Nizam government itself was discriminatory towards the Hindus. Hindus could not perform bhajan in public, they had to do it privately. And when there were a Muslim festival as well as a Hindu festival, always, almost always, the Hindu festivals were banned. Similarly, even public processions of religious nature were banned. There was a regulation called Gasti Nishan Tereppan. Gasti Nishan Tereppan, Gasti Nishan number 53. That's a rule imposed by Nizam, whereby even to start a Vyayam Shala, Hindus had to take permission from the Nizams. You cannot organize libraries for intellectual strength, intellectual reinforcement. You cannot have Vyayamshalas for physical reinforcement. So that was the kind of situation, and Nizam had banned public performance of Havan and Homa. There is this famous case of Radhakrishna Modani in a district called Nizamabad. He defied the Nizam's order to not to perform Havan in public. So he performed right in the middle of a market, which in Hyderabad is known as a Ganj. We have a lot of Ganj, Usman Ganj, Maharaj Ganj, Shah Inayat Ganj, Mehboob Ganj, so on and so forth. These Ganges are markets. So he performed Havan in a public place in Nizamabad, and he was beheaded. Sorry, he was shot dead by the Razakars and the police of Nizam. And the place where he was martyred is still known as Radha Kishan Ganj. So performance of Havans was not allowed. Hindus did not have basic religious rights. They did not have the right to form associations, hold public meetings. The basic democratic fundamental right. They did not have the right to teach their children their mother tongue. The Telugu was not taught in any school that is run by the Nizam government. Schools were always, under the control of Nizam, and the private schools, the few private schools that they had, there too Urdu had to be taught. To organize, to set up a Hindi medium or Kannada medium, Marathi medium or Telugu medium school was very arduous thing, and you need a lot of permissions, and it was never given. But more than that, Nizam's attempt was basically Nizam and Razakars together. They wanted to alter the demography of Hyderabad. So the best way of altering the demography of Hyderabad was to throw out the Hindu population. So atrocities on Hindus became so common that Hindu majority marketplaces were burned, Hindu women were paraded naked, Hindu women were made to disrobe and then perform what is known as Batkamma. Batkamma is a festival that happens during Vijayadashami, where the image of the deity is beautifully decked with flowers, and then it is kept in the middle, at the center, and women go around that and perform rounds of that, and then sing songs of songs in to in obeisance to goddess Batkamma. Batkamma means goddess of life. So women were disrobed. They were asked to perform Batkamma without clothes, and this happened many places. In many places, there is this famous story of a woman called Nakka Andalamma. Nakka Andalamma was, you know, paraded naked and made to perform Batkamma without clothes. And after that, she felt, that the only way she could redeem herself was to kill herself. She jumps into a well and kills herself. Till 1970s, a community called Balasantulu made money out of singing the story, sad story, tragic story of this Nakka Andalamma. They used to get into the trains, get into the buses, go to bus stands and sing this song of Nakka Andalamma, how she, bade farewell to her relatives and then jumped into the well, and then how she killed herself, how she martyred herself, and how she was made to go around and do Batkamma without clothes. And all this story was public knowledge till 1970s, till 1970s. So this we had lot of stories like that, and there are stories, not just stories, they were real incidents where the youth of a village were gathered in one place. They were made to stand in one queue, in a queue, and then they were shot dead. They were, community graves were dug and they were thrown into those.
Right.
Something that we have seen in Kashmir files has
Yeah.
happened in many times over in Hyderabad. One, and
Mm.
there is one famous case. I don't remember the name of the village where all the men were uh, disrobed, clothes drenched in kerosene were wrapped around their private parts, and they were burnt. Can you imagine this kind of atrocity happening anywhere? This has happened in Hyderabad. There were cases where the Hindus were, made to pay for the stay of Razakars outside. Razakars used to come in hordes, and it was the responsibility of the Hindu villages to feed them. One village in Nagar district, it is called Aiza. The village is still there. The Aiza village refused to pay for the stay of the Razakars and refused to supply fowls, chicken and mutton, so on and so forth. So the whole village was burnt down. So these kind of atrocities were very common. The pujaris and the priests were specifically targeted. One of my friend's great grandfather, his head was, you know, badgered into a granite stone, and he was killed just because he was coming after performing a puja in his hereditary temple. Five priests were hung upside down, and fire was kept down below so that they die a very painful and slow and excruciating death. Many such incidents have happened: rape, pillage, plunder, and killing of youth. These were very common during the Razakars. There is a book called Marathwada under the Nizams. It is a PhD
Okay.
thesis which is available on the Google. One can go and search for it in the Google. It gives a long list of over 400, 500 villages that have been affected by Razakar atrocities. How the village after village was, burnt down. In
Right.
Karnataka, there is a village called Gorta. 200 and more than 250 houses were burnt down just because the people supported Arya Samaj. Gorta, if you go to Gorta village, you can still find the remnants of the burnt down houses. This year, I am told by the local MLC, who's from the graduate community. He told me last time when I visited Gulbarga, he told me that a memorial is being planned in the Gorta village. So many such atrocities, they were never recorded. They were recorded, of course, they were recorded by some people, particularly the Arya Samaj recorded them. The old time Congress people recorded them, but unfortunately, they are all in Telugu. They have not been recorded in English. Whereas Razakar literature is coming out in English, and the narrative
Hmm.
of the Hindu atrocities is being suppressed.
In fact, I've also heard about a lot of dargahs being built over temples and Shakti peeths. And I'm also curious because I heard that today Owaisi even visits the Nampalli dargah, if I'm not mistaken. So, what's the reason behind that?
See, the issue is the Razakars in Hyderabad, the majority of the Muslims in Hyderabad do not subscribe to the Devbandi school of thought. They subscribe to the Barelvi school of thought, which approves or supports these dargahs and in the Devbandi theological sense, these are all chilla, these are all forbidden places, and people should worship only the in the masjids, and they should only worship. They should not worship these saints and these so-called holy men. But the Barelvis allow that, and Hyderabad has a very long tradition of Sufi saints. Uh, uh, the Yusufain Dargah, the Piliwali Dargah, and then the Ek Minar Masjid, the Nampali Dargah, and the Maulali Dargah, and the Pahadi Sharif Dargah. All these things have flourished under the Nizams, and that's how Owaisi visits all these dargahs. After the election this time in 2019 and 2018, there were reports that he had visited Yusufain Dargah. So Yusufain Dargah is also very popular in Hyderabad. Dargah culture is quite popular in Hyderabad. You can see roadside dargahs, and um, as far as you know, desecration of temples, there are at least 4 or 5 temples where right inside the temple dargahs were planted. For example, the Vemulavada Shiva temple, the Rajarajeshwara Swami temple, which is popular across the North Telangana. Rajarajeshwara is a very common name. P.V. Narasimha son was named Rajarajeshwara Rao. So Rajarajeshwara is a common deity in the North Telangana region, and right inside the Vemulavada Rajarajeshwara temple, there is the Dargah. Unknowingly, a lot of Hindus go to this dargah and offer prayers. The Brahma temple and this in the Shakti Peeth in Alampur, near very close to Karnool in the Mahbubnagar district. It's almost 4 or 5 kilometers from Karnool district. It's on the border area. Alampur's Jogulamba is one of the 52 Shakti Peethas, and there is a temple dedicated to Brahma over there. So Alampur temple also, right inside the temple you have a dargah. The same story is repeated elsewhere. There are a lot of temples in Hyderabad where there are dargahs right in the center of the temple, very close to the sanctum sanctorum, and a lot of people who go and worship the Other smaller deities, they also mistakenly and unknowingly, sometimes knowingly, worship these dargahs. And across Hyderabad there is this culture, as is available in Karnataka. I've seen this even in Karnataka and parts of Maharashtra, where the um, alams of the Shia religion, particularly the Hassan, Hussein, and all these, they are known as Tajias. They are kept in the villages in where there are no Muslims. Even in villages where there are no Muslims, Tajias are kept, and Hindus worship even to this day. And a lot of Hindus are named after Hassan and Hussein. Ashanna and Ushanna, they have been
Right.
Telanganaized. Ashanna,
Hmm.
Ushanna, Saidulu is nothing but Sayyid. And there are some dargahs, for example, the Janpahad Dargah in Nalgonda district, after which people are named Janaya, Janamma, Jana Reddy, so on and so forth. So names like Nawaz Reddy, Shanawaz Reddy, Nawab Reddy, these are very common in Telangana. These days it's slowly disappearing, but then remnants are still there.
Uh, One question that everybody is asking is that both Jagan and Owaisi brothers, they've attended some of the best colleges in India, and some of them have even practiced. They've moved abroad. They've lived there for a while. In spite of all of that, their ideology seems to be the same. But in stark contrast, you see any Hindu stepping out of the country or going to a very good private institution, you know that that is going to bear an impact. I think it's the case for most of my generation's people today.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation, and true to a large extent. But then, everywhere in the world, most fundamentalist sections among Muslims are highly educated. Ayman al Zawahiri was one of the best surgeons available. Osama bin Laden was an engineer. So the same way, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who brought Pakistan, who actually separated India and got Pakistan, was one of the most famous lawyers. So this trend continues even now. Either Jagan or uh, be it Owaisis, they're all well educated, and they have studied in the best possible schools, and that had made them more rabid. As for the Hindus, at least since 1990s, there is a new awakening, and those who have gone abroad are now becoming more positive Hindus,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
are now trying to contribute for the Hindu society in the true Hindu, true sense of Hinduness. They are tolerant. They want the peace of the world. They want the environment to be protected. They want this globe to be, happy, and they work for what is known as Jagat Kalyanam. So the Hindus these days, at least after 1990s, after this latest Hindu revival, those who have gone abroad are now becoming pious Hindus, devout Hindus, dedicated to the welfare of the mankind and the world. But no Hindu who has gone abroad or stayed in India has ever become a rabid fundamentalist, like the
Absolutely.
Owaisis and like the other people that you have mentioned.
One of the other controversies today that is being created again by the English media is the renaming plan for Hyderabad. That
Yes,
Hyderabad should be renamed as Bhagyanagar,
yes.
and people say that no, it is a very political demand, and that people actually don't want that. But why is it very important for us to revert back to the name Bhagyanagar over Hyderabad?
It's not just Bhagyanagar. Nizamabad district is still popularly known as Indur. The people of Nizamabad still, lot of them use the word Indur. Same way, Mahbub Nagar district, the rural people of Mahbub Nagar district still call it Palamur. The real name, the original name of that area was Palamur. The name Mahbub Nagar is an extrapolation. It was an imposition on the Hindu community. Karimnagar, even now, a lot of people call it Elagandula. Elagandula was the seat of the Chalukyan authority. Elagandula is still popular in the Karimnagar district, but then Karimnagar has stuck. So Adilabad again, it was known as Nizamabad. Sorry, it was known as Nirmal. It was popularly known as Nirmal. Nirmal was, in fact, the seat of authority. The fort used to be in Nizamabad. So, all these lot of villages, the name has been changed, and the names of lot of Hindu areas have been obliterated by the Urdu pronunciation. For instance, there is a village called Ghatakeshwar. Ghatakeshwar. Ghatakeshwar is Lord Shiva. It is now pronounced as Ghatkesar. It is Ghatkesar. So a lot of villages have, their names have been obliterated, names have been changed. Bhagyanagar was known as Bhagyanagar for a large part of time. It was initially known as Golakonda. The fort, the Golconda fort, was known as Golakonda, and this
Okay.
area was named after named Bhagyanagar after
Hmm.
the Bhagyalakshmi temple. And also,
Right.
Sikandrabad was a British construct. It was named after a Nizam called Sikandar Jah, and that's how the name stuck. And Hyder Mahal's name was given. Hyder Mahal, noble lady, royal lady of the Nizam family, was of the Qutub Shahis. It was given, and that's how Hyderabad became Hyderabad. But then there is a demand for Bhagyanagar. You would be surprised to know that in the 1950s and 60s, there was a very famous film song in Telugu. It talked about Hyderabad city, and it said, Ide Nandi Bhagyanagaramo.
నంది భాగ్యనగరం మూడు కోట్ల ఆంధ్రులకు ముఖ్య పట్టణం.
Yehi Bhagyanagar hai. This is the capital of 3 crore Andhras. Moodu kotla Andhrulaku Mukhya Pattanam. That was the song, hugely popular song. If Bhagyanagar was not popular, a 1950 or 1960 vintage film would not have had this expression as a film song. It is still Bhagyanagar for many people. So, going back to the original names is always shrugging off the colonial legacy. So that way, I fully support the name renaming of Hyderabad as reverting of Hyderabad back to Bhagyanagar.
Today Hyderabad is again mired with controversies, especially with the recent case of Raja Singh being expelled, and now the Sartan Se Juda whole episode that is going on.
Yeah.
Just wanted to get your thoughts on it before we conclude.
See, as far as Raja Singh is concerned, I have a different take. As a representative of political party, Raja Singh is not entitled to his personal opinion. If he is a representative of a particular political thought, every political party in this country is wedded to India's constitution, which, whether you like it or not, is a secular constitution. Secular, the word secular is there in the constitution, and any party's recognition can be removed, and it can be de-recognized if you contravene this secular thing. So Raja Singh, as a politician, does not have the right to speak what he has spoken. This is my personal opinion. As an individual, Raja Singh has the right to say whatever he wants, and he can have his opinion on, the issue of Hindu Muslim or then Hindu rights, so on and so forth. So Raja Singh as an individual is entitled to his opinion. Raja Singh as a politician is not entitled to those opinions. That is the reason why BJP must have, suspended him from the party. It sought an explanation. Right now he's in the prison, so there is no question of offering any explanation. So he continues to be in the jail till he gets a bail for a maximum period of 1 year or a minimum period till the time he gets a bail. So that's how that's where it stands. Raja Singh as an individual has a right to speak on any issue, as long as it doesn't affect the communal harmony. Even in case of Nupur Sharma, my considered opinion is that Nupur Sharma may be right. She was speaking what is already there in Quran, or what is already there in the Islamic history, what has already been attested and authenticated by the Islamic clergy. But as a representative of BJP, she has no right to say what she has said. So as far as
Right.
Raja Singh is concerned, Raja Singh is hugely popular. There's no doubt about it,
Mhm.
and there's a groundswell of support for Raja Singh. But as a politician, he has to keep the party intentions in mind, and if he feels that party is an impediment in his way of espousing the Hindu cause, he should resign from the party and then espouse the Hindu cause.
Yes. And it's said that Raja Singh has a very personal story because of which his politics is also influenced. I think that's the same case with Anand Kumar Hegde in Karnataka as well, who up close saw a lot of Islamist extremism in the coastal belt of Karnataka. And I've heard that Raja Singh also comes from that experience, which has maybe emboldened him a little bit.
Well, he comes from a community called a Lodha community. Uma Bharati too belongs to the same community. They have migrated from Madhya Pradesh, and they have settled in the predominantly in the Dhulpet area of the old city. This community is majorly into two professions. One profession is the idol making. The Ganesha idols that Hyderabadis use and worship
Okay.
during the Vinayak Chavati is made by the Lodha community. And the second is they are into bootlicking. A lot of illegal activity takes place in that area. But the Dhulpet area has been a citadel of Hindu defense. In 1936, there was a communal riot in Dhulpet. Muslims tried to attack, the Hindus repelled it and killed two, you know, prominent members of the MIM. So Dhulpet continues to be a very tensed up area all through. Raja Singh, of course, is a very staunch Hindu. There's no doubt about it. All Hyderabadis have the same kind of opinion as Raja Singh, and Raja Singh has, in many cases, acted in support of Hindu community. He
Right.
prevented the cow slaughter and then illegal smuggling of the cows to the abattoirs and all that. Having said that, as a politician, he has limitations. If he feels that politics is a hindrance to his furtherance of Hindu cause, he should relinquish the political party and work for the
Yeah.
Hindu community. People can work for Hindu community even without being politicians.
Yes. Or he can begin a new party also, which
He
people
can.
are advising him
Ah,
to.
the first thing he will have to do if he forms a party is to swear by the Constitution of India, which is secular and socialist, whether you like it or not.
So
Whether you like
it
it or
goes back
not.
to the same thing. Yes.
Yes. Willy nilly, even Majlis swears by secularism. Indian Union
Right.
Muslim League swears by secularism.
Yes. Sudhakarji, thank you so much for giving us your time today. This has been extremely enlightening.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much for blessing us with your presence every time and
Oh,
contributing and giving us a bit of your knowledge to Swarajya as well. And I hope a lot of our viewers will be extremely educated with the thoughts that you have shared with us today.
thank,
And
thank
in
you
the
so
future,
much.
I
Actually,
hope
I
we
should
can.
thank you. I
No,
should
no,
thank
no.
you because I've been watching your videos for
Oh,
quite some time, and on Chitty Media and also on Swarajya, and I consider myself very fortunate to be able to be on Swarajya, which is a vanguard of national revival, and all that is right in Indian polity and society. So um, I am
thank you so
reading
much.
India
It
right.
just.
I am listening India right. I am doing India right. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. That's extremely kind of you, and I'm actually very humbled to know that you've watched my videos before. It's a
Thank you.
great honor, Sudhakarji. Viewers, please do let us know what you thought about this, and if you have any questions for Sudhakarji, please do comment below, and I'm sure we'll be very happy to have another session where he addresses
Thank
a
you.
lot of your questions that you may have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.